Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of RGB Talk. I'm Tony Reyes.
I'm William Awazi.
And today we're discussing the topic, do films with black lead characters make any money? I mean, there's been a lot of talk in Hollywood how films that are starring, a bunch of black people, are bad for business. But is that the case?
I don't know. I think it has more of like the thing where it's like even in black movies, like The Last King of Scotland, or any other movie you can talk about where it's supposed to be based around a black character, lead character. They always have to put like somebody else, the other, to represent that audience.
Yeah. Okay.
To motivate them to want to see it. So I think that I think that's an excuse because I mean there's been quite a few popular black themed movies, like for example Straight Outta Compton. I mean that was like that did really well, and that was a black driven, character driven movie, with the accent of Paul Giamatti as their manager.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was any motivation for people that weren't African American to go see it. They want to. I mean, especially if you're into hip hop culture or more. You want to learn more about like. If you were an NWA fan, you want to learn more about the group. But I think there's definitely like an audience out there, and especially with science fiction, superhero movies. I mean, I know like with the Ghostbusters remake, it's been getting a lot of criticism about being a whole feminine or woman cast, and I don't take issue with that at all, because there's been quite a few movies or storylines that have been switched. Like The Lone Ranger is actually based off of a black character, a historical figure. So they're always switching up characters in movies and TV anyway. Like Kung Fu was played by David Carradine. That was supposed to be Bruce Lee's show. So with the same sorry excuse that like they didn't think an Asian character could lead the TV show.
Yet he went on to make a lot of money with his films.
Yeah,
so,
with his films,
right after
exactly.
That. I think it's an old argument, right? Do minorities having lead roles in films, does it make any money? It's an old argument, and I think it's been answered time and time again. Prior to the 1950s and 60s, they didn't think films with black lead roles would make a lot of money, but they were proven wrong back in that time period with Melvin Van Peebles when he made Sweetback, which started the whole black exploitation movement because there was money being made.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because during that time, Hollywood wasn't doing that well during the 70s.
Okay.
So when Van Peebles, movie was a success, Hollywood saw that, and they saw like how much that it was so grassroots and organic that the film blew up and became a success, that Hollywood started to invest in doing what is now known as the black exploitation period in Hollywood, that I guess ended in the early 80s, but during the 70s, I mean, you had Shaft, you had JD's Revenge, and the thing that the reason why I picked that one out specifically, that it wasn't like this typical storyline that you would have with like gangsters and cops, or like, even though Shaft was like a detective, with JD's Revenge, it had the supernatural
of the ghost,
complexity to it, that, you know, it was kind of bringing you into that realm of science, not science fiction, but fantasy and horror type genre.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it kind of like crossed the like barriers in a sense when it came to like the whole supernatural aspect and the fact that it did take place in New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't typical for the time to have a film like JD's Revenge. I remember watching that like two or three times. My mother used to watch it, and I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, the possession, it was pretty cool. But again, it's our old argument. Films that have black lead roles have made money. Even recently with Tyler Perry films made money.
Yeah, good point.
What is a new TV show with Terrence Howard in it?
Empire.
Empire makes money. Will Smith has been making money for decades.
And, you know, and he's a big, how they say, like crossover actor.
Yeah,
where he appeals to not just only a black audience, but Asian, white, Latino.
I can tell you definitely that people in China know who Will Smith is. That's all I was called while I was in China. Which to me wasn't a bad thing, because one thing that Will Smith does make is quality movies, and he doesn't play stereotypical roles.
Yeah, he's a good representation of not just American culture, but black American culture, which I think internationally, like we do have like a bad image problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has to do with the marketing that of the entertainment media that we do here, whether it's the hip hop culture or the roles that's been given to us or we choose to do in these movies that go abroad.
You know, but I find it interesting because you make a very good point, but it always brought the question to me that the representation of blacks in films that go abroad, there are some that are negative, and there's some, but there's also that are good. So when people make argument that, well, it's that negative representation that affects the way blacks are seen in other countries, I'm like, wait a minute. They get both the good and the bad.
Yeah, but
they're making the decision to take the bad. Right?
That's true.
So that's more on the person than the films. Come like, yes, there's a lot of films with black characters not having the most, you know, best or positive roles. But then there's a whole lot of them that do. I mean, this is... I mean, it's just today. It's not 1962 anymore. We have, even then, you had good films. Who's Coming to Dinner, right? You had stuff with, what's his name in the film? Who's Coming to Dinner?
Oh, Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier did a lot of great films that I still watch today. So I find it to be, it's really a person's personal mindset if they take more of what's positively out there or negatively, because you get both the good and the bad in terms of black representation in films. But in terms of Hollywood, again, it's an old argument. It did the same thing with music, right? Back in the 1950s and 60s, when black people did rock and roll, granted, created rock and roll, black people were not allowed on the front covers. They'll put white people on the covers, or there's no, you know, expression a black person made it in order to sell it.
The fact that it was a marketing ploy to try to generate more sales.
Exactly.
And, you know, during the cultural climate of the time, I guess I kind of see why they did it, but also why it needed to be broken.
But then it begs the question, is it that the market's not ready, or is it that
the industry is?
The industry's not ready. Like, what comes first? Does the industry have to introduce? Or do we got to wait for the market to say they're ready? How would you know unless you test? How do you know unless you do? And granted, they often mention films that have failed, but honestly, a lot of white films have failed. There's a lot of bad films that are out there that has something to do with color. Right? So if there's a good quality film, I feel that good quality films will make it anywhere. So definitely we're going to see when the upcoming Black Panther film comes out, because we have no idea. But that's going to be something interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even with them coming out with the Luke Cage Netflix series, that I'm interested to see where they're going with that. Because this is a character that was developed during the Black Exploitation era. And so it had a lot of, like, you know, the corny, like, jive talk and all this. but also and kind of have like what I was talking about before with the whole background story with him being like this hood. Yeah, that's what he was.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
what the goon, huh?
Well, yeah, the T word.
Yeah.
So he kind of starts off like that, and then but he's set up, framed for a crime they didn't do. Even though, well, I mean, it is kind of relevant though with a lot of stuff that's been going on with like a lot of the black youth and things with, you know, people may do things that are not necessarily good, but that doesn't make them like, it doesn't justify the actions taken against them, like, taking their life or anything like that. So, now the storyline is pretty relevant to what's going on, like in the news, but with the character, like, it gets a little complicated when it comes to him getting his powers, because back in that time they were talking about like experiments on prisoners, and to get like less time and stuff like that. So and also maybe I guess against their will too, using prisoners as guinea pigs. So I'm not sure where they're gonna go, because I noticed with Jessica Jones they didn't really go into why or how she achieved her abilities, and they didn't really go anywhere with that with the Luke Cage character when he's introduced in her series. So I'm not sure if they're gonna go into that and with his background, because I know he's hiding from something, or something in his past. But I hope they do a better storyline. Just reinvent the character like they did with Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, where to give him more substance, and also a credibility and a dignity to the character.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Luke Cage film and what's going to happen with the Black Panther film. I think a lot of that will answer these questions we have. I mean, I already believe that good films with black lead roles does not affect revenue. Even there was a recent report that came out that stated that the more lead black actors you have in film, you make over more than 100% more in terms of revenue. Well, in a recent article.
Well, I think that's why it's been like such an upsurgence going back to Green Lantern Jon Stewart with the Justice League, with Bruce Timm and Dwayne McDuffie. Dwayne McDuffie was an African American writer. He started Milestone Comics, which was also a part of the DC universe, which they merged. But with the introduction of that B or C list character, Jon Stewart, I think in his popularity had risen like 100%. And then I think maybe the comic industry started to take notice in the diversity and with their cartoons of females. Hulk Girl was Latina, and so like the more diversity that you have in these platforms, the larger your fan base grows. I mean, even the CW, it was a report like with the whole DC series that it's just good business to broaden your fan base by being diverse.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because again, the whole mantra, do films with black leads or minority leads make money, it has been. It's not new. It's just a system that is slow to change, even though the facts are in front of them. So it's not the facts that are the issue, it's the individuals. But anyways, that's our time for now. We're curious what you think about this topic.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know, and have a good day.
All right.